Welcome to the Penny for Your Thoughts podcast. This is your weekly insight into the small businesses of London. Today we're going to be talking to Nicole Compen, who is the founder of Raye the Store. Raye the Store is a really interesting new concept grocery store full of undiscovered and up-and-coming food brands. It's got a real focus on wellness and health, but what makes this place really interesting is the fact that it's so carefully curated. So they only allow 3 brands per category. Everything has to be at least 50 centimeters off the floor, so there's no bottom shelf, and Nicole has literally poured her heart and soul into finding the right people for the stores and making sure everything looks absolutely brilliant. Packaging design is something that she's really crazy about, and she makes sure that everything that's in her shop looks literally stunning, and everything is just mind-blowing when you walk in. I actually stumbled across her place in Spitalfields in the summer. I had no idea who she was, but I popped in and I was like, oh my god, what is this place? It looks phenomenal. So without further ado, let's see what she had to say. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't we start by chatting a little bit about what you do, Raye the Store, what it is and how you got going.
So Raye the Store officially launched in June last year, in 2021. It's been almost 4 years since I kind of started shaping the concept. And we launched with a 10-day pop-up store where we showcase all sorts of innovative food, drink and wellness products. Some brands have never been on shelves before. They're launching with us, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
So we're the first to kind of showcase them. And we very much focus on bringing together like-minded brands, as in brands that use natural ingredients, no artificial additives, no palm oils. So it's in a good for you category. And then also packaging design is something we pay attention to. And we did 2 editions last year. We are about to launch a 3rd one. And it's set up for discovery. So anyone can come in. It's open for the general public. We host a series of events that are free to attend as well. So that's in rough what we do.
I mean, I've had a little look around. I actually visited your one in Spitalfields, which was amazing. I had no idea who you were. I had no idea what it was, but I just stumbled across it. It's almost like walking into like an art gallery, but for like healthy food products. Is that something that you kind of thought about as you were launching? It's very curated.
Yeah, so what we try to focus on is to make sure that brands are like prime positioned. So what you generally see in a supermarket or any grocery store, there's a lot of products. Even within a certain category, there's like an overwhelming amount of a similar type of product just from different brands. So what we try to do is really make sure that we position the products well, that they stand out. We put information cards with every brand and product, so you can read a bit more about how a brand got started, because in the end, every brand has a story. There's a person behind the brand, and that's what we want to showcase and shine a light on. We then also allow up to 3 products per category, so to keep enough variety, but also for a product, like a brand, not to sit next to another 10 of a similar kind. So some, as you can imagine, some categories are quite competitive. There are not a lot of nut butter brands out there, for example. So it's kind of, we would carefully select which one we work with. So it is very much a discovery space where I guess the gallery element comes in.
And so you used to work in marketing, is that correct? And so what made you make the switch from going from being full-time employed into starting your own thing?
Yeah, so I've worked in brand and marketing for, I think, about 5-6 years in total. And it really kind of, it was mostly in hospitality. And it kind of helped me understand, different like businesses from a different angle, because with the fact that I've worked for kind of small, like still kind of startup-y brands, it meant that I was involved with a lot of like the logistics, operations, product launches, and what I always noticed was for food and drink brands especially, there's so many great brands and products out there. They all launch online, which makes sense because you're direct to consumer. However, if you launch a product that is quite unknown, for example, like a couple of years ago, kombucha, like no one had ever heard of it, for a brand to then convince someone to bulk buy, pay shipping fees, it's quite a big barrier. So at some point I just started thinking like, what if all these amazing like Instagram brands almost come together in a store, and you can just grab one product and you can still continue purchasing it online if you love the product that they've developed. So that's kind of how the idea came about. I was still in my full-time job when I did the very first edition. So I was fortunate enough to be supported by the company I was with, and I went part-time for a couple of weeks before opening the store, and then I had 3 weeks off to run the 10-day edition. And basically the day I returned to the office, I basically asked my boss for a meeting, and the first thing he said was like, you're leaving us. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do this. So yeah, that's how I kind of decided to move away from my full-time job. So it wasn't really like just like, okay, this is it, I'm gonna do it. It was kind of like a gradual process, quite like considered, I would say.
That's quite that's actually quite a lovely way to go about it, isn't it? That must have been much easier. It's quite interesting because it's like, you're usually, when we sit people down, they talk about the pain point from like the customer's point of view. Raye the Store is almost kind of like targeting two different areas, like of two different like pain points from different people, because you're solving an issue for brands who want to sell direct to consumer, but it's potentially a little bit difficult, and you're also solving the pain point of the customer who doesn't want to buy 12 cans of kombucha because they've never had it before and they don't know if they'll like passion fruit and mango flavored fizzy tea. So I think that's really interesting. That's something that we've not had on here yet.
Yeah, so we are basically like a B2B to C brand, because we're B2B as in we work with brands directly. So I personally have a conversation with every brand we have on the shelf. So to put that in perspective, the next edition will have just over 100 brands, which means that I've spent a minimum 30 minutes chatting to 100 brands, which for me is it's the most exciting part of what I do, like just connecting with people, hearing their stories, understanding what the product is about, where they are at, because every brand I work with is so different. Like some, like I said, are just about to launch. Others are already in larger supermarkets like Planet Organic or Sainsbury's, but they want to join for the brand exposure and being alongside those like-minded brands and new upcoming brands. So for me, that's very interesting to kind of understand and make sure that we support them in the best way possible. And then the B2C part is, as soon as we open a store, obviously we get consumers in. So that's where it gets exciting in terms of being able to showcase those products on the shelves. And a lot of people walk in and just like, what is this place about? Like, what do you guys do? And then we explain it, and they love it. The fact that we work with most of the time it's 90% UK brands. So it's really about kind of championing the British brands and products. So yeah, it's a B2B2C model. Yeah.
And moving on a little bit, you've obviously been kind of on this journey for quite a long time now, 4 years. Obviously only going full time with it not too long ago.
Less than a year.
Yeah, less than a year. What, about eight to 10 months ago. What would you say have been the 3 like most influential factors that have helped you along the way in getting here?
The first thing that comes to mind is surround yourself with people that are willing to support you. For me, that was the case with my previous job, that I got the chance to host the first edition before stepping away from my full-time income, essentially. And yeah, like connecting with a lot of people, just being open for conversations. I've had like extremely helpful support from people that have been running companies for like 10, 15, 20 years. And mostly I connect with them via LinkedIn actually. And I just want to follow what they do. And I sometimes just send them a direct message. And I'm very often surprised how open they are for having a conversation and giving me their time. Like, I've got a bit of a mentor now, I would say. He's probably gonna hate it when I say this, but he's been like on a weekly basis. I like speak to him. We meet up every other week, and I just share my struggles. And obviously, he's not gonna tell me what to do, because in the end, I need to make the decision, which isn't always easy. But it's great to kind of bounce ideas and different thoughts around, because in the end it's just me who started the brand, and it's quite challenging to be in your own head and not have someone to share it with all the time. So yeah, it's definitely surround yourself with supporting people, and I think the other thing is going for it. Like, things will never work out the way you plan for, so you can do so much planning, but you just never know what will happen along the way. And yeah, things, to give you an example, which is something I never forget, with edition 1, I was setting the space up, but obviously products were gradually arriving, and then at some point I received chilled products, but I didn't have my fridges yet. So I kind of like, okay, what am I gonna do now? So I just run across the street, asked like a restaurant and a pub to see if they had any fridge space to store the products for. Like, I think it was 3 days before my fridges arrived. So it's things like that you just like, obviously something on my part to not having planned it out correctly or communicated it. But again, like, you run on these things and just need to find a quick solution. So yeah, just going for it, and not overthink everything that you want to do. And I think the third thing is probably like listening to the people you work with. So in my case, I try to very carefully listen to brands and understand what their needs are and how we can adjust what we do. So we introduced sampling sessions from edition 2 because that's important to brands, to be able to connect with customers directly and get the product into the hands of people. And then at the same time, like, trying to understand where they're at. So we then started inviting more buyers from larger retail stores to invite them to come in and discover. And every single edition, it feels like I learn many more things. And at some point with the last edition, I got quite overwhelmed with a lot of agencies connecting or like trying to connect with me because they see that we work with a lot of brands, and I almost panicked in a way where I was like, these people like all want something from me, but I don't know how to manage this, and I also don't want to disappoint anyone. Brands are like the priority for me. So I then tried to figure out how to fit that in. So we came up with something that we're launching in a couple weeks to further support brands who we've been working with. So yeah, it all like slowly comes together, and new avenues arise because of just doing things.
You're about to launch edition 3, and that's all happened in a pretty short amount of time. Obviously, there was a long run up, there was a long planning stage, and in the last like 10 months, you've popped out 3 pop-up stores. Where do you see the brand in like 5 years' time?
I always feel like too ambitious to say this, but like I said, you have to go for things. So the rough plan is to run another like 3-4 editions in London this year, to then settle in on a permanent store, which will be kind of like an ongoing pop-up, because we want to change the fit out and the brands every season or every couple months, while still continue doing the pop-ups, but probably outside of London, so into different UK cities, and then the longer plan is into Europe as well, because any city can use a raye store, in my opinion, because every country has so many products and brands to offer. So that's kind of like the 3 to 5 year plan. So yeah, it's kind of figuring it out as we go and learn and adjust, I guess.
I mean, you're basically doing something that it's not really been done before, to my knowledge.
Yeah, not in the food and drink space, I would say. In fashion and kind of sustainability, you see similar concepts, but obviously there are a lot of marketplaces, which is kind of the online version of raye the store, but that's not something that I wanted to do, because the fact that we want to help brands get in front of customers in like a real time setting, I felt like an online grocery store doesn't really fit that concept. But that's what I say now. Maybe that will change in the future.
Okay, and moving on to our final question, which is always the one left by the previous guest. So Will has left you a very juicy question this week. He wants to know about, his actual words were, tell me about a time you wanted to smack your head against the wall, name no names.
That's a good one. Happens quite a lot that I feel like that. I probably the most recent kind of scenario would be dealing with landlords and trying to explain the concept, because like you said, it's not something that is known that well. So there's a big challenge for me to share how I can kind of bring something new and unique to the high street, but they're not all very receptive of it. So yeah, that's quite frustrating. So that probably will be my answer to Will's question.
Yeah, I can imagine it is an absolute nightmare. I mean, dealing with landlords in any capacity is often a nightmare, and I can only imagine trying to explain the concept of your business.
Yeah.
I can imagine it goes down well. Anyway, thank you for joining us today. It's been lovely chatting to you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.